As we continue off with the conversations right here on Good Morning Namibia, Professor Kenneth Matengu, Vice Chancellor of the University of Namibia, has been re-elected as President of the Pan-African University Council, PAU, by the African Union Executive Council. Now, this prestigious appointment extends his leadership for another 3-year term, solidifying his commitment to advancing education across Africa. Professor Matengu now joins us in studio to share his insight and plans for the future of the Pan-African University, headquartered in Cameroon and operating through 5 institutes continent worldwide. Professor Matengu, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank
good
you
morning
so
to
much
the viewers.
for joining us.
Yeah,
Amazing.
thanks.
First of all, congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you very much.
Being re-elected, this is your second term as president of the Pan-African, that is University Council. What does this mean for you?
Well, let me start maybe by just giving a bit of background. So the Pan-African University was established, or the decision to establish was in July 2010. And then it was established in 2011, began the operations in 2012. And the way it is said to function, it has its statutes, it's a legal entity, but it's one of the organs of the African Union. And so the president of the council is elected by member states. And that process, although it's an election, member states are free to sort of nominate. And the first time I was elected, it was an interesting process because Namibia had to nominate a candidate, and they thought it would be me.
Okay.
And it took 7 rounds of votes amongst the foreign affairs ministers for that to happen. And for that, I would like to give credit to the then Minister of International Cooperation, our current Vice President, Dr. Netumbo Ndaitwa. I'm sure it was a lot of work to do that. And then this second time, there were, as you know, 54 member states comprise the African Union, and out of those 54, 48 were eligible to vote. The others, of course, are suspended for various reasons. And out of that 48 eligible member states, 45 voted in my favor.
Nice.
And so I think that was quite...
45 out of 48? Out
of 48, yes.
Okay.
And so that, I think, is a sign of confidence, and I feel humbled to be able to continue to lead this council.
Right.
Yes.
Now, how do you feel about the trust placed in you by the African Union to continue leading this prestigious institution?
I actually feel this is not a position, it's more an obligation and a responsibility that is given to me. As you know, Africa has different systems. We have the Anglophone, the Francophone, the Lusophone. All these systems of higher education needs to be harmonized, and to be able to make sure that we have proper African qualification system and accreditation system that takes care of the transfers of students if they move from here to Cote d'Ivoire or from Algeria to Kenya. These systems are from Namibia to Mozambique. This system needs to be harmonized, and it is the responsibility that we have to work with the African Union Commission under the Commissioner for Higher Education, Science and Technology to make sure these things work. And so it's quite a big responsibility, but it's one that I feel humbled with the trust they have given to me to do this. I report to the Executive Council, which is the Foreign Affairs Ministers. Yeah, it's quite interesting, but also very, very fulfilling task, so to speak.
All right.
Yes.
Now, just to reflect on your previous term, what do you consider to be your most significant achievement as president?
So when I was elected in 2021, I found the university was running, but it wasn't functioning as a normal university, so to speak. Okay. And my first task was to make sure that is corrected. It had been operating on a basis of interim vice rectors, and when I came in, there wasn't actually anyone in place. So I had to kind of double to run it as a VC and the council president at the same time. And we managed to convince the African Union chairperson to check within the regulations what to do, because the challenge why it didn't have a vice chancellor was because in the regulation it says to be a vice chancellor of the Pan-African University, you must be under 55 and you must have been a VC before, and you must be a full professor. Where do you find those people?
Yeah.
There are very few on the continent. So we had to work with the legal counsel in the union to make sure we get right. We have, so one of my successes, I think, was to be able to appoint the vice chancellor on a full-time basis this time for the first time, and his deputies. The vice chancellor is from Burkina Faso and the deputy is from Nigeria. And so that is one thing. The other thing that we have been able to work very hard on is to transform the curriculum to make sure that all these curriculums that are offered in the different institutes across the sub-regions speak to Agenda 2063. That has been done. We got support from GIZ, JICA, and KFW. We have established laboratories in all these institutions. We now have to work on their accreditation and other things. And lastly, I think one of my achievements was in April this year, when I was invited by the European Union to sign as part of the Global Gateway program, 972 million euros for support to African universities to make sure there is intermobility amongst themselves, because Africa has tended to work more with the North rather than within itself. And so this funding is meant for that.
Right. Now, with all those achievements, I'm sure there has been a few challenges. What are some of the challenges you've encountered?
There are many. There are many, because on the continent we still see that if you study in Cote d'Ivoire and you come to Angola, it's either your qualifications are not accepted or they are not seen to be equivalent. So we have to also make sure that there's equivalences are right, the credit transfer systems are right, and that these institutions are all international accredited, so there's no question if I go somewhere with my qualification. Secondly, Africa, unfortunately, at this stage, doesn't make it easy for academics to be mobile. So you will find in many instances, in our cases, UNAM, we have very good facilities for research, for training, but we do not have sufficient number of experts. In other countries, they have a lot of experts, but they don't have the facilities and the infrastructure. So we must make the mobility of African diplomats, academics, easier. And at this stage, it is difficult, and that is a problem that we have to work on. Immigration is one of the things that African member states needs to discuss to make sure that it is easy for academics to deliver the service wherever they want it to. And of course, resource mobilization, increasing the number of participants. The biggest challenge at this stage is research tells us that Africa needs to produce 100,000 PhDs per year. 100,000 PhDs per year. And at this stage, we are far, far, far from that.
My next question was going to be like, is it realistic?
It should. I mean, if you take 54 member states, there are 2,500 universities in Africa. So if each of those just do a little bit more than 100 PhDs per year, you would be able to reach that number. But at this stage, it's far from that, and African member states needs to increase the funding so that these institutions are able to produce. Otherwise, we are not able to meet Agenda 2063 because we need scientists and researchers to be able to do that.
All right.
So resource mobilization and all these issues of harmonization, credit transfer are serious issues.
Right. Professor, perhaps before we let you go, looking towards the end of your term, which will be in 2027, what would you say are some of your aspirations for the institution beyond your presidency?
I hope that this institution will be able to increase on its own the number of masters and PhDs it takes. Pan-African University does not take bachelor degree students. It only takes masters and PhDs, and those are the top cream in Africa. We take the best. We receive around about 14,000 applications per year, but we can only take 460. So it's very, very competitive, and I hope that this threshold will be increased to more than 1,000 and open it up, and make sure that the other institutes, like the one in Southern Africa, which is not supposed to be hosted by South Africa, but it's not operational. So that is one challenge that I have to make sure is done. And of course, promoting of the South-South cooperation, increasing resource mobilization and accreditation and credit transfer systems on the continent.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Professor, congratulations once again. We wish you all the best
with
your re-election, and all the best with your future endeavors.
Thank you so much. Luckily, it's not a full-time job. It's a big responsibility, but I'm very happy to push it through with the support of member states.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. That was Professor Kenneth Matengu, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Namibia, joining us this morning, talking to us about his re-election as President of the Pan-African University Council, just sharing some of his significant achievements, seeing that this is his second term as president, and also some of his aspirations, that is for PAU. Well, don't go anywhere. It's close to 7 o'clock. If not 7 o'clock, Dishishi is on standby with the news.